guys? Welcome back to the Crowncast. We hope you liked the divisional round of the NFL playoffs because some of us did not. We're going to start off this week by talking about that, do a recap like we always do. So we're going to start off with Bengals Titans, and boy, oh boy.
Wow.
What a game. Actually, it was close, right? I think the Bengals got out to a little bit of a lead off a couple field goals, but it was nothing like crazy for a few minutes there. Joe Burrow didn't play his best football game, but he certainly didn't play the worst quarterback play we saw all day.
Oh my, yeah, that's a very fair point.
Burrow threw just 9 incompletions out of 37 attempts, had 348 yards. He did have an interception and no touchdowns, but it was a decent day for him. Mm-hmm. Joe Mixon finally got it going a little bit, 14 for 54 and a touchdown.
Which was what they needed.
They need to get that ground game going, especially. Well, they won. So going into this week against the Chiefs, who can beat you in several ways, you got to have a ground game. And I think the Bills sort of proved that, except for, well, we'll get to it.
We'll get into it.
We'll get to it. But what were your thoughts on this game? I'm curious.
When your defense has 9 sacks and your offense cannot do anything, that's a problem.
Well,
how often do you ever see a team get 9 sacks and they end up losing the game?
Fair point.
Not very often.
But more often than not, when that happens and your quarterback throws 3 interceptions.
3 big interceptions.
Costly interceptions.
I mean, what was the last interception was like 30 or 40 seconds left. That ended up losing them the football game.
Yep.
Quite literally.
Pretty much. And that's the thing. Is like everybody was talking about how big of a factor Henry was going to be. He was pretty pedestrian.
I mean, you were right. Your take was right. They should have just gave the rock to Foreman.
4 attempts for, what was it, 60-some yards?
66 yards.
Yeah.
And one of them he bursted out for, I think, like 30 or something.
Well, and my take was that Foreman and him can be a good 1-2 punch, but the carries out, like he's got 4 attempts to Henry's 20. Henry has less yards. Like, yeah, I know that he's the best running back in football, arguably, but he's been on the sidelines for 8 weeks. Let's take a breather here. Like, you have weapons, use those. Don't put it all on the running back. And clearly, they should have put more pressure on both their running backs because Tannehill couldn't get the job done. There's a few times in Tannehill's career where he has been the one reason that the Titans have lost.
Yeah.
And I would say this is one of the biggest games where it is completely on him. They weren't like they were good balls that were tipped or knocked around at the line. They were just bad passes.
I mean, I think the last interception you had there was like 2 or 3 guys on him. And it was like, why would you even try to force that?
Well, and you talk about how the defense got 9 sacks. The Bengals only scored 1 touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
The rest was field goals. They did enough to win. And you know what? And we'll get into it in the next game, but you let teams hang around and you don't put them away. Not to say the Bengals are worse than the Titans, because I bet on the Bengals to win, and I was right. Shocker. But
I plead the fifth on that one.
But I just think that there is this idea that the Titans were such a dominant force throughout the season, but without Henry, they were very pedestrian. And when he came back,
I mean, they started 9-2 before he got hurt.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, a lot of teams started up very good, like the Ravens, but
sure,
it didn't finish well.
But the Ravens also lost Jackson and a bunch of key players along the way, and so you didn't. And not to say Huntley played bad because he didn't, but I think there's something to be said about how well the Bengals have responded to their opponents in tight situations.
Mm-hmm.
So. But yeah, that's about all I got for the Bengals Titans.
The only real thing I got, which the Titans have to figure this one out, is because Tannehill obviously pretty much blew that entire game. Three interceptions.
Yeah.
And his contract is massive. So if they were trying to trade him, I don't know if any team really wants that contract.
Well, he's like a 30-some-year-old quarterback who is just choked in the biggest game that he's played in. Well, I mean, I guess he played in a couple big games last year. He's had like
almost 20 interceptions this year.
It was a rough season for Ryan Tannehill. And I know the argument's going to be, well, he didn't have Julio and he didn't have AJ for most of the season. Sure, but there are other good quarterbacks in the NFL who just make it work with less talent, and he just didn't. Moving on, we have the absolute meltdown of a performance by the Packers. And I want to get into that just a little bit, but not too much because it'll make me sad.
You got the spotlight.
All right, so first drive of the game, they go like 60-some-odd yards, and it's a scoring drive. Looks like they're going to just dominate all day.
10 plays, 69 yards.
Yeah, so like that's a really good, strong drive to kick off a game. And they punch it in with A.J. Dillon. Everything looks good. And then you have, and Rodgers doesn't play poorly necessarily. 20 for 29 and 225 yards. He had, there was a lot of pressure in his face. And so I think he played decently well given that. I don't know why Bakhtiari didn't play. If you're going to play him in the Lions game and then not play him in the biggest game of the career, it doesn't make any expletive sense why he's not playing.
Why didn't you give him 3 weeks?
I'm sorry. Like, we've been hearing for 6 weeks about how you're coming back. Honestly, at this point, if Yosh is the guy, why are we holding on to Bakhtiari? Oh, he's the best offensive tackle in football. Sure, that's great and all, but we're not paying you to sit on the sidelines so you can play a half of football against a team we didn't care if we beat. That half would have been better to have this week. Maybe I'm a little frustrated, but that's just me. A.J. Dillon leaves the game early. He was 7 for 25 in that touchdown. And I think that's a big part of the loss. I think Dillon adds a dynamic that a lot of teams are going to struggle with. Who wants to hit a guy who's 250 pounds and runs a 4.5 40 in 2-degree weather?
Right.
And Aaron Jones didn't really do much, so we didn't get the run game going. I mean, he got it going through the air, but on the ground it just never happened. And look, like, you can blame the Packers offense. I get it. We didn't score. We didn't do enough to score. But when the 49ers' only offensive points, came from, or not offensive point, only, touchdown came from a blocked punt because our special teams unit is so bad. It's so bad that you lost the game on special teams.
And it's been a problem all year.
We were the 32nd ranked special teams unit.
All year it's been bad.
And our special teams coach still has a job.
Like currently?
Yes. He's still our special teams coach. He should have been canned 10 minutes after that game.
Oh, yeah, because on the last field goal, you guys only had 10 guys on the line.
Total system failure. The defense was the only players that showed up. And we talk about how defense wins you championships, and that's great and all, but they don't score touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
And they certainly don't give up blocked punts. So you can't win that way. And I'm not even going to get into the 49ers because there's literally nothing they did that was special or notable at all. Deebo Samuel was bottlenecked for most of the day, held under 100 total yards of offense. Elijah Mitchell averaged 3 yards a carry, and Jimmy Garoppolo played like dog shit. Like, he didn't play good at all. So you want to tell me...
He didn't really have to, do much, though.
But you want to tell me the 49ers are actually the better team? No, they're not. They weren't. They just won. And when you let not bad teams. They're not a bad football team. Let me rephrase that. When you let teams hang around that you're better than, that are scrappy like the Niners are, they're going to find ways to win football games. And they did. We let them win that game. The Packers didn't lose. They lost that game. The Niners didn't win it. That's just my opinion. That's all I got.
That's all you got. I think my biggest take from that game is something I've kind of said all year was okay, so who's the wide receiver 2 from Adams, right? And so you look at it, and Aaron Jones had 9 receptions. Vontae Adams had 9 receptions. Yeah. And maybe we underutilized, or I'm not sure what word I'm trying to look for, but Scantling didn't play.
And that's another one.
Deep threat guy,
that's another one we've been hearing is going to come back. He's almost ready. He's almost ready. Okay, Matt, is he actually, or are we just getting strung along like a bad ex-girlfriend?
Right.
What are we doing here? I mean, I don't get it. And you're talking about target share, right?
Yeah, because the third guy had one target for 1 reception for 6 yards, which he had 1 target.
Yeah,
which was Lazard.
And make no mistake, I think Allen Lazard is great.
Right.
If you watch his ability to make plays on the edge, there are balls that Rodgers has thrown, and I love Aaron, I do. And despite what everybody says about his political thinking or whatever, as a player, I love him on the field. He commands an offense well, but Lazard is very talented. If you've watched his big play ability, when he gets chances, he usually makes the most of them. And he didn't get any chances.
It's just a problem when 80% of your targets are to 2 guys.
Well, think about this. 20 passes. were completed between 4 players, Mercedes Lewis, who had no yards on his, and Lazard, who had 6 on his. 18 other ones were made up for 131 or 39 yards of offense or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's not, or 219 or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not, you can't, and even the target share is indicative of that. 21 between the two of them, between Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams. It's just not, you can't, it's not sustainable football.
Mm-hmm.
And when your run game isn't working, you cannot not spread the ball. But you got to throw it to who's open too. So, I mean, I don't know. I think Green Bay is going to have a lot of changes. And if you want to get into that, we can get into kind of the implications of this game and what that means real quick. Or that we can make that a whole separate video.
We might as well.
Well, you know, and I was thinking like sneak peek for the future. He and I are I'm a Packers fan. He's a Colts fan. And I thought maybe it would be fun to do like where do we go from here after the Super Bowl for each of our teams. And you know, granted, that'll be Super Bowl is 2 weeks away. Which is crazy to think about. Or not even. Yeah, it is 2 weeks.
Yeah,
there's the bye. There is the bye.
Yeah, we get to watch the Colts versus the NFC Pro Bowl.
Because of all their Pro Bowlers.
They have the most Pro
Bowlers. Yeah, but what was it, 7 or 9 or whatever?
I don't know. Didn't make the playoffs, though.
We'll get into that thoughts on that. But I think that there is going to be a lot of turnover in Green Bay. We did re-sign Kurt Benkert, which makes me happy because I like Kurt.
Right.
But it's also nervous because, like, usually that third quarterback spot is kind of a guy that's like, you know, they come and go.
Right.
So obviously maybe Matt really likes him. And Jordan didn't play good when he was given opportunities. No. Yeah, he's played 1.5 games or 2 games or whatever. But Kurt didn't look bad in preseason, and he looked equal, if not better, than Jordan. And you never want the undrafted quarterback to look as good as your first round pick after 2 seasons of sitting the bench.
Yeah.
Just saying. But anyway.
I think my last take for the Packers and the 49ers game was, they've said it all year about the Packers, was that they're a very good football team. You can't make any mistake about that. The roster says it. Their quarterback says it. They have the best receiver in the league. They had the 1-2 punch at running back. But all year, they had this one problem. And they've done it a couple times. You know, they've blown out teams. But they just couldn't put teams away. They just couldn't.
Yeah.
All year. It
became something of a problem for them.
You know, even
and they never blew anybody out, really.
No, like sometimes, yeah, they faced injuries all year.
Everybody does. I mean, granted, not to that level. Like a lot of Pro Bowlers and good players were hurt, but I get what you're saying.
But like it kind of showed in this game too. Like they started off hot on the first drive, and after that, I mean, it was just cold. There was just nothing going on.
I don't really want to. I mean, you know, and Robbie Gould got his revenge. Played for the Bears for a long time. They lined up. That was a little disrespectful. I won't lie. As a Packer fan, you never want to see the kicker being like, what the hell is going on here? Why are they lining up in front of me when I'm trying to practice kicks? But, yeah. No, I mean, I could get way more into this, but there's not enough time in the day to get into what I feel. So, Rams Buccaneers. What a game, first off.
I mean,
without even
Coop.
I mean, the guy is he finds the soft spot in every defense.
MVP.
Do you think so? I mean, he might get a vote.
If it wasn't a quarterback award, then yeah.
So let's start with the losing team in the Buccaneers. And what a game for the
they were
Rams.
Down 27-3 at the start of the third quarter.
Yep, and we almost saw some magic. But so Brady throws the ball 54 times in that game. He's 30 for 54, 329 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception.
And we watched this game together.
We did. And I want to just bring up the fact that Brady played pretty damn bad in the first half.
Yeah.
Like honestly bad. Like I don't think I could quantify that as it's not really his fault. He played pretty bad. Leonard Fournette really never got the yards that he probably would have expected because the Rams' pass defense is a little better than their rush defense this year. But he was 13 for 51 and 2 touchdowns, which is great that he got the 2 touchdowns. Some people might say that he shouldn't have scored when he did on that last drive gave the Rams too much time.
Which is evidently.
I mean, I would disagree. I think you score there because you've been so ineffective all day, and you got to take points where you can get them.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion. Mike Evans was big for the Buccaneers. 8 receptions, 120 yards, and a touchdown. Gronk had a good day. But ultimately, it was the Matt Stafford show, wouldn't you say?
I would have to agree with that statement. And I was rooting for the Rams.
So was I. Let's be honest here. We're not exactly rooting for Brady. And we'll get into him maybe a little at the end of the show. But Matt Stafford, what was his numbers? You got him?
Yeah, he was 28 for 38, 366, and 2 touchdowns. No interceptions, which has been huge for the playoffs.
Well, and that was a problem going into the playoffs, because we weren't sure if we were going to get Stafford throwing pick sixes all week.
Right.
Now, granted, the Buccaneers DBs are not world beater DBs, but
and I wouldn't say the 49ers DBs are all.
I wouldn't either. Honestly, I wouldn't say I would say that if you want to be honest, I think the Bengals have the best DB core left in the playoffs. Because the Chiefs are down Tyrann Mathieu probably. He's got like a concussion or something.
Oh, he got messed up bad.
Yeah, he was smacking his helmet like he was in
the
pain.
back of his head, I think, too.
Yeah, so I'm guessing concussion or neck injury. I don't remember if I've ever seen an update on that.
No, I think it was a concussion, but
probably.
I don't know.
So that's tough because he's not probably going to play this week. So I would say the Bengals probably have the best DB core going into the the championship round.
And I think that, and I know I'm going to get probably flamed for this, but I think that OBJ trade was almost the best thing that the Rams did all year, besides Von Miller, because of Robert Rhodes getting hurt.
Yeah, and that's the thing. People are like, well, he's playing good. And it's like, yeah, he is. But, that target share is open more without Robert Woods there.
Uh-huh.
But I think the unsung hero of this offense, and correct me if I'm wrong, Van Jefferson. Who are you thinking?
Cam Akers coming back.
Cam Akers, 24 for 48 yards. Not great, but his angry runs have been the story of short yardage play for the Rams. And I was skeptical of Cam Akers last year. I didn't like him much. Since he's come back from the ACL tear or whatever he had going on, he's been very good for them. But I think Van Jefferson, he didn't have a crazy game by any stretch of the imagination. He did get a 1 carry for 15 yards and 2 catches for like 30 yards. But just in big moments, I think in that last drive that he had like a catch for like 15 yards, and he just imagine that team with Robert Woods, Odell, and Cooper Kupp at their best, and then when you need that fourth guy on the field, there's Van Jefferson, who is like a huge deep target. He can make plays. I like him a lot. Mm-hmm. I think the Rams are a pretty damn good football team.
I think they're a really good football team.
I'm really, really pulling for the Bengals this weekend.
But I think all of America is almost.
Like, it's the underdog. It's the guy who wasn't supposed to be there.
Yep.
But if it can't be the Bengals, I'd really like to see Matt Stafford win a Super Bowl. As a Packer fan, I've watched him suffer enough.
I would rather see Rams or Bengals or Rams or Chiefs.
I just think the 49ers get blown out by any of these teams, to be honest. But we'll see what happens.
Anything could happen at this point.
It's been a wild, wild season. And the other story of the game was Cam Akers had 2 really costly fumbles in that game. But somehow the Rams pulled it out. They stayed in the lead, and they did kind of take their foot off the gas in the second quarter half, but Brady didn't have any magic left in his fingertips for that one. But what a game, really. Mm-hmm. Like, you're standing there, like, we stood up. We were watching the end of that game because we thought for sure some magic, but
I think another thing that was talked about before the game that actually played a big part was the Bucs offensive line and how banged up they were.
No Wirfs.
But just
Jensen.
Just how the Rams D line already is. I mean, the first half they were on him. He had the
Brady
took
some shots. He took some shots.
They were blitzing. They didn't really have to blitz though. It was like 4 or 5, just 4 guys.
Well, when you got Aaron Donald, Von Miller, and I can't remember his name offhand, but you can send whoever you need to send, and
right,
yeah. So the clear-cut game of the week was the Bills Chiefs game, and what a game it was.
Best game of the year.
maybe the best game I've ever watched. If you like offense, you would have loved this game.
I think this might be the second best game I've watched.
Yeah, I mean it's.
But the other one also did have the Chiefs, and that was a couple years ago with the Chiefs.
Oh, when they
and
put up
Rams.
like 58 points or whatever it was.
Chiefs Rams.
Yeah.
But that was a defensive battle too.
I mean,
but anyways,
you look at the numbers. Josh Allen and Mahomes played the same football, like damn near to a T. Allen 27-37, 329, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. And Mahomes 33 of 44, 378, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. We talk about dual threat quarterbacks, and I feel like most people think Lamar Jackson or like, I don't know, other quarterbacks in the league. Both of these guys got it done on the ground, big for their teams. Allen was 11 for 68, and Mahomes was 7 for 69 and a touchdown. I mean, don't get me wrong, like the Bills did everything they could in that game, and I don't think they could have played better. Well, that's not true. Except for their overtime stint, which we'll get to. Also, don't ever let your girl tell you 13 seconds isn't enough. Anyway, so Gabriel Davis, what a game.
He's a madman.
I mean, I saw some people thrashing him on the internet, and it's like, okay, the dude had 8 catches. Okay, 8 catches for 4 touchdowns and 200 yards.
That's like a college football.
That doesn't happen every day. That doesn't happen in the playoffs, and that doesn't happen. Like, he has been very good for them in like short spurts this season, especially while Diggs has been kind of in a slump this year. Who, by the way, story of the game there, only had 3 catches for 7 yards. Ouch. Don't like that. But, I mean, what's your take on this game? Like, I want to know what you think, because we didn't watch this together, but...
You said it best. The Bills couldn't really, on offense at least, couldn't do anything better. I mean, they
played a
literally
perfect game.
Could not do anything better. The only thing I will say about this Chiefs team is that if they have to play, which they do, obviously have to play the Bengals. If they have to play the Bengals or the Rams, who have arguably both have top 5 offenses, it's also going to be a shootout because that defense is trash.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to really come, especially without Matthew, it's going to come down to whose defense plays better. And I really, truly believe the Bengals' defense is better. And we've saw the Bengals and the Chiefs go toe-to-toe before this season.
Because the problem that occurred for the Bills' defense was they're like, okay, they only need like short yardage plays. We got to cover Travis Kelce. Who they leave open? Tyreek Hill on a slant route. And you go 65 yards for a touchdown.
To the house, yeah. It's just you can't.
And then guess what? Last drive, 13 seconds, they're like, okay, we can't get this big play. And who they give it to? Travis Kelce. Who'd they cover? Tyreek Hill. And it was like, you guys are covering the wrong guy. I mean, Travis Kelce was wide open on that last play to get in field goal range.
And it stinks because I really, really wanted the Bills in the mix. Like, I feel like there's a lot of fan bases that I don't like in the NFL. Like, you just interact with certain fans, and they're not humble. They're just cocky and terrible, or just obnoxious. I'm looking at you, Cowboys fans.
Justin.
No, he's not too bad, but he is definitely a Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl this year kind of fan guy. But like, the Bills deserve it. Like, I feel like they've earned it. They came so close so many times now, and it just hurts to watch. Like, you're almost a fan of them by proxy.
Yeah, I need to change the overtime rules.
Agreed.
I think they need to simplify it. It doesn't have to be that big of a deal. For example, I'll just make it really simple. Chiefs won the toss, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was tails.
Sure.
So they got the ball.
I think it was heads. They called tails. Bills called tails.
Yeah.
Because they were the away team.
Yeah. So the Chiefs get the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
They go down, score a touchdown. Okay, cool. You earned it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Bills get the ball back. They don't score a touchdown, game ends.
Yeah, I think it should go until someone doesn't score a touchdown. Or
if the Chiefs get a field goal and the Bills score a touchdown, boom.
Yeah, see,
Game
that one
over.
makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
The Chiefs won the toss, they score a touchdown.
Game over.
Like what?
It just seems unfair to a team.
And like I understand it in a way because Football is a very, very like exhausting sport after the fourth quarter. Like fourth quarter is like where teams like can make it or break it. I mean, we've seen some pretty good comebacks of teams that were like winning by 20 plus points and have a meltdown. Colts. So like I understand the overtime because like the defenses are exhausted with these two teams.
Yeah.
These high-powered offenses,
Yeah.
where it's pretty much like you're having to cover like 5 guys that you have no idea.
Think about Gabriel Davis. He just caught 200 yards. That doesn't account for how many runs. You know?
Yeah.
Like the amount of adrenaline in his body, and like
Yeah.
he probably slept the whole flight back to Buffalo.
I mean, the overtime just needs to change. That's just point blank. And I'm not just saying that because I said it back when the Patriots beat the Chiefs, and it was like, you're really not going to let Patrick Mahomes get the ball. And now it's like, and the Chiefs even wanted to change it. Like they requested the rule
2019,
change.
Andy Reid proposed it, and they shot it down.
And now it's like, okay, well, the Chiefs are obviously on the winning
They're
side
on
of it.
they're the beneficiary of the rule, but
I just think it needs to change. I think it's better for the sport. I think you look at the comments and everyone's saying it, so I agree.
hell, there's analysts saying it. Like there's actual people who get paid to cover the NFL on a daily basis who are like, this doesn't make sense.
Even the announcers.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And the league needs to note that. Like Goodell needs to say, yeah, you're probably right. It doesn't make sense. Maybe we need to work on changing
And like
that.
I said, maybe like having like a couple possessions isn't good because like the offenses, they were scoring at will, and we saw it.
Well, and that's it.
So it's like the defenses weren't going to stop them in overtime. You
it
know
was
what I mean?
whoever got the coin toss. Everyone tweeted, like if you were on Twitter at the time,
Dave
it was
Portnoy's like, whoever wins this coin toss wins the game. And that's exactly what
and
happened.
it was so predictable. Now I will say, what a game! Like I don't, like I said, I haven't watched better football in such a long time, but I really really enjoyed football last weekend. Other than my Packers losing, I'll be curious to see what this next.
Every
weekend.
game ended it with like 5 seconds left.
Yeah.
Either a field goal or a touchdown.
And the spreads,
overtime.
like if you bet the plus odds, you probably would have won every game because the spreads were all stupid low.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but no, we're trying to keep it a little light this week. So if there's anything else you wanted to bring up,
so I think we both kind of agree on who we want to win the next 2 games. So I don't think we really need to debate this. I think it's going to be the Bengals and the Rams. So do you disagree?
No, that's what I want.
But if I had to say,
I think
this is a very bold prediction. I don't think the 49ers have a shot.
Yeah, I didn't think they had a shot last week either, so I guess we'll see what happens.
No, I really don't.
I don't either.
Warm weather game.
Honestly, if you're betting on this game, take the Rams minus odds every time. I really don't see any chance that the 49ers can cover.
I think the 49ers the Rams just have so much firepower on offense and defense.
I agree.
I don't think that
I think they're the
Rams will put up points.
They're the
We
presumptive.
know that.
I think they're the presumptive Super Bowl winner right now.
The Rams are going to put up
the
points.
Chiefs can score at will, so we'll see.
So it's like, okay, Jimmy Garoppolo, what do you got?
Nothing. He ain't that good.
What do you got?
Mina Kimes, I know she's been getting a lot of hell on the internet. She does not root for Jimmy Garoppolo, and she gets a lot of slack for that. Another reason I don't like Niners fans. But she's right. He's not a good quarterback. They might be winning, but he's not a good quarterback. And if you watch him play, you know he's not a good quarterback. Don't defend him.
Right.
That's just my opinion, obviously. But
no, I agree. In my head, I think the 49ers did like have a better like matchup with the Packers just based on like their injuries and like the cold weather, like that obviously has like a big implication on how things go. But warm weather, I mean, it's going to be
a war at SoFi if that, this weekend goes the way I think it is. But we'll see. I mean, the fans are going to show up big. So it'll be honestly a good game to watch.
Oh, yeah. Bengals Chiefs, I think that's going to be like a last week affair where it's like offensive game. I don't even know who's going to win, honestly.
Well, the Bengals beat them earlier in the season when the Chiefs needed a victory.
Yeah, it was 41-38.
Well, that's the thing is like the Chiefs needed that game. They would have locked up home field advantage in the playoffs if they won.
If the Titans would have lost.
Right.
But they needed to win.
They needed to win that game.
Just in case they lost.
Yeah, and they didn't. The Bengals were better that day. That doesn't mean they won't be better tomorrow because it's Saturday when we're recording this. It doesn't mean they'll be better tomorrow, but it does mean that they have a shot.
You know, one thing I will say that maybe a lot of people haven't said, but I think the most underrated player, because he's been pretty good even when like the Andy Dalton days, is Tyler Boyd.
Boy, I liked Boyd back in the day.
Remember, like in fantasy, like he was with AJ Green, and everyone's like, "Oh, you got to get AJ Green." And I was like, "Nah, dude, Tyler Boyd's the guy."
We're talking about like 2016 when there was a clear shift in who was the guy, and it was Boyd. This team is different though. Boyd is like the savvy veteran wide receiver, and then you got T and Jamar.
T Higgins who can get 200 yards.
And people are still sleeping on Joe Mixon a little bit because he hasn't had the best season of his career.
Well, I mean, he
started out hot, but
when you have those three receivers, I mean, and then you got the tight end. How do you say his last name?
Uzomah.
Oh my dude, he's a freaking baller, dude. He had a hell of a first half. But I think that's about it, really. We got the Bengals and Rams.
I mean,
but like I said, I wouldn't complain with the Bengals or Chiefs, Rams.
Not at all. Not at all.
Or Bengals, Rams. Yeah, either one.
I mean, as long as it's not Niners.
I'm writing off the Niners.
Really?
I'll put money on it.
Let's do it. But all right. I think that's all we got for this week. We hope that this weekend is as good as last for football because, good God, was it a good weekend of football. But we love you guys. Watch the championship round. Have a good weekend.
Deuces.